You're in the 06010. Focus. Fantasy Focus.
Welcome into Fantasy Focus Football, presented by Wingstop. My name is not Daniel Dopp, it's Stillfield Yates, and I'm here with Daniel's best friend, Mike Clay. What's going on?
You know, we're less than a week away from the holiday season.
Yes, we are.
Christmas is almost here, so getting ready for that. Do you do all your decorating and stuff? Do you do that yourself?
No, I take zero responsibility for that.
Oh, is
but
that right?
my wife went above and beyond this year.
Yeah? Okay,
like to the point that like we've had friends over who have been like, what's gotten into you guys? We look like one of those Christmas movies right now. It's awesome. It's great.
So all
I
the
love it.
lights around outside on the house?
The truth is that my wife is at home with the kids on Sundays, and when you have two young children, you got to find things for them to do. So one Sunday, I think this was like mid-November, she was like, we're going to decorate the entire house. Went crazy. It was awesome.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, how about you?
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
Okay, you're good.
Yeah, I'm good. I got it all decorated, the lights outside.
No
Although I
surprise.
have this timer that just keeps not working, so I have to return that for the second time today.
What?
I know, it's terrible. The light timer. So last night I was out in the rain, like playing with electricity, which is always great. It's always good, but I made it. I've survived. So,
Okay, gotcha.
you know, there's always something. It's like, remember the 12 Pains of Christmas?
I thought it
that
was the
song?
12 Days of Christmas.
Yeah, but the 12 Pains, the parody of
Oh,
it.
no,
the
I haven't
guy,
heard that.
One of the funniest part of it is, I remember from when I was a kid, but the one part of it is this guy just like freaking out about the lights not working every year, and he's trying to rig up the lights and stuff. If he could go out and find it on YouTube or somewhere.
It's got to be on YouTube somewhere, right?
Of course, it's out there. It's out there all the time. My girls love it. So.
Okay, I got to check that out as well. I've got some homework after the show. Daniel, probably back tomorrow. We shall see. We got a big show ahead. We're going to preview at least part one of Week 16, plus Thursday Night Football preview, as we do have Chargers versus Broncos tonight. A reminder, our first ever Thursday Night Football Flex takes place tonight, as this was supposed to be the Browns and the Bengals. It is now instead a game with much more meaning in the Chargers and the Broncos. And also, shout out to all of us, because I would argue that we are about to enter the best stretch of football watching ever.
Yeah.
Do you realize what begins starting tonight?
Oh, yeah, the whole stretch.
We have,
Go ahead, yeah.
It's incredible.
Light out.
So we have Thursday Night Football tonight. Tomorrow night, we got the first ever 12-team college football playoff game, the Battle of Indiana, Indiana versus Notre Dame. Saturday, we got 3 more college football playoff games. We got 2 more NFL games, 12 games, of course, in the NFL slate on Sunday. Monday Night Football on Monday. Monday Night Football. Wednesday, Christmas Day, we got 2 more NFL games. Thursday Night Football. Then we get right back into the action on Saturday. There's a triple header of NFL games next Saturday. And then, of course, a full Sunday slate. And then a Monday game. And then Tuesday and Wednesday, following Monday Night Football, we have more college football playoffs. I know that I am rambling at this point, but the bottom line is this. Enjoy it, people. We are at the most beautiful time of the year. Soak it all in. Cannot wait for what is ahead.
Well, I'm glad I finished season 4 of Only Murders finally last night while I was wrapping presents, because I'm not going to have time to watch
You are not.
anything else.
No, we're going to be very, very busy. Hold all of our plans until about, late January, because we have a great month ahead as I fix my IFB here. Mike, we are going to begin with a little game of bounce back or break down. And this involves a couple of quarterbacks I kind of view in a similar light, but I want to see where you are at on these players going into Week 16. Let's start with Brock Purdy, who had a really bad game last Thursday night. There was some rain that they played in that game against the Rams, but they were just highly ineffective. They scored a total of 6 points. But Brock Purdy this week plays against the Dolphins. More on Tua in just a moment. What's your confidence level in Brock going into this game?
Well, first of all, looking at that screen brings back pains of last Thursday because I had him in our FF Now League in the quarterback slide. It would not have mattered. I got absolutely crushed, but that's painful. That being said, I do think he will bounce back to some extent. I have him QB 11 right now, so fringe starting option if you're in a spot where you need to start him. He's your best option. I don't think that's that big of a deal. Look, he had 5 straight games with at least 17 fantasy points. He was humming through the middle of the season.
Yeah.
Then he missed the game with the injury.
Yep.
Comes back, has that terrible weather game in Buffalo. Yep. Then has 22 points against Chicago. Bounce back game. Then has the rain game against the Rams. So his duds recently, pretty excusable, honestly. And again, when there was normal conditions against Chicago, actually a good defense, he did well with 22 points. So he's still 3rd in yards per pass attempt to staple in any Kyle Shanahan offense. He's 3rd in ADOT, so he's pushing the ball down the field. And he has 285 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground this year. He's actually 3rd in scrambles among quarterbacks this season. Now, this is a tough matchup against Miami's 2nd fewest fantasy points of quarterbacks. None have hit 23 this year, so that's why he's not QB 7 or 6 like he is some weeks. He's a tougher streaming option, or a tougher start this week, but I think he'll be better than he's been for the past month.
You know, the rushing yards have really dipped, though, over the past 3 weeks. 18 total rushing yards in his last 3 games. He's a tricky one. He does not feel like an auto start for me, but he is certainly good enough. And right now, there are enough quarterbacks that are no longer close to auto starts, right? Like guys like Patrick Mahomes at the beginning of the season. For those of us that believed in Anthony Richardson at the beginning of the season, even 2 players playing tonight are in tough spots, right? Bo Nix against a good Chargers defense. Justin Herbert, who has not been great of late, against a very good Broncos defense. So he's right there on the periphery of being a top 10 quarterback option for me. We'll see on Brock. You know what's interesting is you mentioned that Bears defense being pretty solid, which over the course of the year they have been. I saw this from Courtney Cronin, who covers the Bears for us here at ESPN, amongst a variety of other things.
Yeah.
They've really turned a corner in the wrong way since Matt Eberflus got fired, huh?
Yeah, you're right. I think we mentioned that last week. Like the 4 highest quarterback performances they've allowed was over the last month. So they're going the wrong direction for sure. But I mean, still Purdy delivered in that one week.
He did, yes.
You know,
all right. So
when conditions were normal, everything like. Sometimes it's so easy to just look at the point totals the last few weeks because we're looking at players all the time. But you're like, man, it's not shocking that in 2 horrible weather games he had duds.
Yeah.
And one when he was out with an injury. You know?
And so I think we're both sort of bouncing back here. Like bouncing back enough that he is a fringe top 10 option.
I think he'll, I'm projected at 17. I think it's a fair number.
Let's go to Tua Tagovailoa, who's in the same game, obviously, playing opposite of Brock. And I kind of see him and Brock in a similar light.
I know, it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's that, like for 4 straight weeks, prior to last week, Tua was awesome. 23-plus fantasy points in 4 straight games. Was red hot. He was white hot. He was the highest scoring quarterback in fantasy during that 4-week stretch. The thing about Tua, though, was obviously last week was bad. And as we know, more so than I would argue maybe any other quarterback that we are talking about often as a potential fantasy starter, Tua has just kind of let us down late this season, typically in December. Now, there's one notable exception, is that Tua is not playing in cold weather on Sunday. This game is being played in Miami, so that fear feels a little bit less dramatic this week. Where do you land on Tua?
I'm at QB 14, so I'm kind of where I've been for the most part over the last month or so. Generally, I think I've gone as high as like QB 8 or 9 when the matchup was decent. He had a couple good games mixed in there. But look, he had a stretch of 4 straight games with 23 fantasy points. His only weekly finish better than 17th otherwise was week 1 when he finished QB 8. So, you wonder where he's going to settle. And I've been, I've stayed with the opinion that he's going to end up as a mid-range QB2 because that is what he is. He has 22 rushing yards in 8 games since he returned from that concussion. I know his completion percentage is best in the NFL, but he also has the lowest ADOT in the NFL. He's super conservative, and they're playing the 49ers, the fewest yards allowed to quarterbacks this season. 3 quarterbacks have hit 16 against him this season. Kyler Murray and Josh Allen were 2 of them. They ran. They had rushing touchdowns in the game. Sam Darnold ran for 32 yards, which isn't a ton, but it helps push him into that mark. So Tua, not running. He's going to have to do it through the air, and the 49ers have not let anyone do it through the air. I think Geno is the only one that had a big passing yardage total, and I don't think if he had a touchdown in that game, it was 1, he did not have a good fantasy day. So tough matchup. I don't think I would feel super comfortable starting him.
Okay, so let's do something different here. This is kind of fun. So just to build off of this quarterback conversation that involved Tua and also Brock Purdy, we're going to play a game of hidden rankings, and I'm going to be delivering 10 options to you, Mike, and here's how it works. I'm not going to be giving you all of them at the same time. I'm going to go one by one. You're going to rank these things somewhere 1 through 10. But if you say, as an example, if I give you Josh Allen as the first option, and you rank him 1, you no longer can rank anybody else number 1, which truthfully would be hard to beat Josh Allen these days, given the 2-week stretch that he is currently on.
I don't think I'll regret that one unless it's like yogurt and granola comes up next.
That would be the only thing that could surpass Josh Allen.
Yeah, I think we saw Jameis Winston doing this exercise.
Yes, oh my God, it was so great. If you have missed Jameis doing it, he was doing the best part about that was when he was doing hidden rankings of like fast food offerings, right?
Yeah.
And he was going through them, and he was like, "Oh, he calls Chipotle." And he goes, "Oh, Chipotle." He's like, "That's like the healthy version of McDonald's." An all-time line. Like, I don't know what that means. I don't know how he got to that conclusion, but it's great. And Jameis is one of a kind. Obviously, not going to see him this weekend. But let's begin, Mike. Here we go.
All right, let's do it.
We start with Kyler Murray.
Ooh, Kyler Murray. Who are they playing? You got to give me the opponent.
Carolina.
Because we're going to use this week.
Yep.
Who they're
So
playing
we're
this
using
week, right?
Kyler Murray playing in Carolina, where it's expected to be cold, as in like 35 degrees cold.
Yeah, traveling across the country. I will put Kyler at. I'm optimistic this week. I'm going to put him at 4.
Okay.
Give me 4 for Kyler Murray.
4 for Kyler Murray. Okay, so Kyler in the hidden rankings lands at 4.
Do we have a list here so I can keep track?
We will. Well, I'll keep it in my brain as well, but I know that our production team is building a full screen as we speak. In the same vein as Kyler Murray, Call of Duty Double XP.
Oh man, I haven't played Call of Duty in so long. And I don't have time for video games these days. I don't know about you. I got to go low on this one. I'm going to put this one at we'll go 9.
9. Wow. Okay, so you left some wiggle room in case somebody has a real stinker.
Yeah, if there's something disgusting
down the stretch
I
here.
gotta. If it's like a pizza with anchovies or something like that,
no
or
one likes
boneless
that.
wings, I gotta.
You don't like boneless wings?
No, I like bone-in wings.
So do
That's
I.
where
But
it's at.
I mean, bone-in wings.
I think
are
it's
superior.
disrespectful. What?
Bone-in wings are superior.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
Yes. Boneless wings should not. They don't deserve the respect to be called wings.
Okay.
They should be called nuggies or something like that.
Yeah. Nuggets, tenders, whatever you want to call them. For what it's worth, you have Kyler ranked as QB5 this
I sure do.
week. Jalen Hurts, who has been, you may know,
let's
pretty
go.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm concerned that like a Josh Allen might be on this list, so I'm gonna go 2 for Jalen Hurts.
That is pretty close to where you have him ranked in your quarterback rankings this week. He is quarterback 3 for you. Okay, so here's what we have accounted for through 3 options. Number 2, taken. Number 4, taken. Number 9, taken.
Okay.
Next up, Joseph Burrow.
Joe Burrow. Ooh,
yeah.
He's
quarterback
been awesome.
4 for you this week.
Yeah. QB 4. I'll go 3 with Burrow.
3 with Burrow. Okay, so the 2 out of the 3 first slots have been taken up.
I know.
Burrow's been good, man. He's just been so good, and he runs a scotch a little bit, right? But man, like in a league in which we are seeing very few quarterbacks dominate both yardage and passing touchdown totals, Joe is just one of one right now.
Yeah, he was. He was my favorite target in drafts this year because he was going after guys like Stroud and Richardson, and there was some like hesitation with his health, like how healthy was he, and he's put that to bed. I mean, he's actually what we were hoping C.J. Stroud would be. Like you need to put up them elite passing numbers if you're not going to run, and Burrow has done it. He's going to. Evaluating him and Chase is going to be fascinating in the offseason because do they come back to earth if the defense is better? That's been a big part of it.
Sure,
they just have to throw nonstop,
right? Yeah.
Because Chase is going to be a candidate for that first overall pick in fantasy drafts next season, and understanding their scheme and if they're just going to lean on that pass so heavily or have a better defense is going to be so important. And of course, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be getting into that. So I'm ready.
I'm starting to get the vibe that the Bengals are going to keep it all together with those 2 wide receivers this year. You know that?
I think they will try.
Saying the right things.
Yeah.
Did you see who hired for an agent? We don't usually get an agent talk here on Fantasy Focus.
I think I saw it, yeah.
The same agent as Jamar Chase.
Oh, all right. Well.
So you think they do a 2-for-1 special right there?
I hope so.
$500 million for the 2 of them.
I would love that because that's
awesome.
Such a fun offense. I mean, it's funny. You were saying like we flex Thursday Night Football, and it's fine. Like these are 2 potential playoff teams, should be a good battle, or probable playoff teams. Like from a fantasy standpoint, or it might be. Like, both teams might score under 20 points tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we'll get into it later, but, like,
I would love that.
against the Bengals, though, that might have been 45-42. That would have been a blast.
I think back to some of the games that have fit in that category in, like, recent years. Remember the night that Christian McCaffrey was traded? It was right after Thursday Night Football, and it was Cardinals versus Saints. Andy Dalton was starting, and it was like just a bonanza of points. And the next thing you knew, the game was over, and CMC got traded, and it was like, holy crap, that is the most fantasy-filled night of all time. It was incredible.
I love that.
All right, so Sam Darnold, who draws the Seahawks in Seattle this weekend. By the way, Geno Smith won't participate in practice yesterday. That's a good sign for him. Tricky one here, Mike. And I'm not going to – I'm trying – you know what? You make your pick because I don't want to influence where you have him ranked.
Yeah, I think I'm down to like QB 10 this week.
You do.
So I will go – do I have 7 available?
7's available,
7.
Yep.
Yeah, let's go 7.
Available. Okay,
Give me 7.
So 7 for Sam Darnold. So I have a few teams where I rode either Sam Darnold or Justin Herbert to the fantasy playoffs.
Okay.
So obviously not the strength of the roster, but, those guys had some bright moments this year. What do you do this week, man?
I think it's Darnold. I mean, Herbert going up against Denver. They're gonna
not either or. Just like those types of quarterbacks.
Yeah. Look, I'll tell you what. At this point in the year, with Seattle battling for a playoff spot, oftentimes you're like, all right, you're going in the 12th man in Seattle. But like last week, the Packers just handled them. I mean,
And the fans. Did you see the fans last week?
Yeah, that was not what you're used to. That's not what I expected from Seattle, the team, Mike McDonald, defensive mind, the crowd. Like, it was, man, the Packers just came in and just crushed them. So if I have Darnold, I'm like, all right, I don't really have too much to worry about here.
Sure, totally. Man, I'm just saying, like, I guess where I'm at is, like, in those leagues where I have a Darnold or a Herbert is, like, am I really going to go down, like, the Drake May path this weekend?
I don't think so over Darnold, but maybe with Herbert. I don't know.
That is, though, right?
We'll get into this. I have my score projection for tonight's game, and when you hear that, if you agree with me, you might be like, I don't want to be invested in this game.
All right, well, this should be easy. Josh Allen.
Number one. Let's go. I'm glad I kept it. I had a feeling he'd be on this list. Easy
Josh
call.
Allen's been
MVP, right? He deserves it. This got to be the year. This has to be the year. I mean, who's going to beat him?
I presume right now the argument centers around Josh Allen 1 and then Lamar Jackson 2.
Yeah, I know, but they have what do they have? Baltimore has 4 losses now.
They're 5. They're 9 and 5.
Yeah. I mean, that's always wins matter a lot for this award, and Buffalo is 2 losses. I mean,
they have 3. Yeah.
All right, well, all
so
right.
11 and 3. The Bills are going to be 14 and 3, and the Bills. If you look at the Chiefs' schedule, and Patrick Mahomes is an alien, and he's practicing fully, so I think he'll play on Saturday. But the Chiefs have 3 remaining games. Each of those 3 games against teams with at least 9 wins. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the Bills play against the Patriots, the Jets, and the Patriots, who have, if you were to combine the Patriots as 2 teams and the Jets as a third, they have 10 total wins.
Unbelievable.
So a much more difficult schedule down the stretch for Kansas City than Buffalo. That being said, KC has a 2-game buffer. So that certainly helps with just 3 games left. All right, so Josh Allen goes number 1.
No doubt.
You have no doubt about it. You sure about that?
Yeah.
Because
I'm scared.
The next option.
Oh, no. Did I mess up?
Homemade margaritas.
Oh, man. Come on. See, are they my homemade margaritas?
Yeah,
I'm
yours.
good at
Duh.
these are really good. It's
5
tough.
is as high as you can go.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's got to be 5. Come on. Love a good.
You could have had Josh Allen as 5. That would have been a real
I know, man. That would have been a disaster. I'm glad Mark's didn't come first. I got to go with the Marks. I make a mean one.
Okay.
So.
Well, you might regret
I'll
this
treat
next
you someday.
week then. Jaden Daniels.
Oh, yeah, you should. This is fine. Yeah, we'll go 6 with Jaden Daniels. He's been awesome. They are playing the Eagles, so it's a tough matchup. You could even put him. Yeah, no, he has to be ahead of Darnold, so got to be 6.
Okay. Can you be nice about this next one, though, please?
Nope.
Anthony Richardson.
10.
Wow.
Yeah, he deserves to be down there. Okay. It hasn't happened yet. And look, I'm hopeful. We've seen. We don't. I feel like this hasn't been the case throughout our careers in this industry, but these high pedigree quarterbacks, it takes a minute. Yeah. It's kind of like tight ends, or what used to be the case for receivers. It was always the year 3 was the rule for receivers. That was the breakout year. Tight ends, sometimes these high pedigree guys would take 5 years, but before they hit their stride. Richardson maybe gets there someday, but right now, not happening. Just hasn't been good. It's way too inconsistent. So I don't want to start him this week for sure. I'd be scared.
I was not. I was earlier in my career, probably had less of a platform at that time. I was doing Fantasy Focus, but the last time I felt like I stuck my neck out there for a player in a pretty meaningful way that came close to Richardson was during Melvin Gordon's rookie year.
Oh, and that was some bad luck there.
But for those that don't recall this.
Yeah, I know.
Melvin Gordon, who was like the 14th pick in the draft to a team that obviously needed a running back who, by the way, Melvin Gordon rushed for over 2,000 yards his last season in college. Like, he was incredible. And I was like, I love this guy. I'm all, whatever. I'm all in. Like, feed me the Melvin Gordon shares this year. And he goes on to score 0 touchdowns as a rookie.
Like 200 touches and missed like 4 games, but had 0 touchdowns. I still write about him often because of the touchdown regression article. He's one of the all-timer headliners for that column.
Well, here's what happened. I'll tell you what happened. I recused myself from all Melvin Gordon conversation the following offseason. Whenever he came up, no matter the context, I was like, I'm out, I'm good.
Yeah, and he scored what?
Like 14 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, in the interest of everybody who has Anthony Richardson in a keeper or a dynasty league, I'm not saying a word this offseason. I'm backing out of it.
Mm-hmm. See, you should have known me back then because the funny thing about that is there's this wild stat, and I include it in that column every year, the off-season touchdown article, where like every running back that's had like fewer than 3 touchdowns on 200 touches in year 1, the next year, if they repeated the touch count, had at least 8 touchdowns. It's like wild. Like,
so is there anybody that's in that category this year?
I don't know. I'd have to look. I haven't dove into that, but it's just kind of a fascinating kind of thing. Like they always overcorrect. It's kind of wild. So, Yeah, that's I'll never forget that Gordon season. That was wild.
All right, we'll keep moving things here, and then we only have one option
This
left.
industry humbles you quick,
Sure
as
does.
I've learned with the Jets this year. Oh, my. I was so sure of myself that they were going to be good. It's like you cannot find weaknesses on that roster, and I was.
Don't forget, Mike. Never wrong, only late. Or only early, I should say. Or late.
Oh, yeah, next year they'll somehow, like, Rodgers will be gone, they'll somehow win, like,
you never
12
know.
games. So.
Last one here's Tua.
Oh, Tua? Yeah, okay. So what do I have left? 8?
I think you have 8
7,
left,
8? Yeah, 8. We'll plug him in there.
Any regrets?
Any what?
Any regrets here?
Regrets? No, I think it worked out pretty good. I'd probably I have Murray, I think, a spot ahead of Daniels this week. So this is almost perfect, I think.
Do you feel a little
maybe
bit
Mark's up
disrespectful towards the
1.
Marks? Yeah.
Maybe up 1, but I don't feel I like him this week, so I have no problem with it. Plus, we were a little hard on him this week with the Call of Duty curse, so we'll be
just
kind.
speaking facts.
I like it. I like it though. No, that's a good list. I think I nailed it.
All right, here we go.
All right, on to the next thing.
We're on to the next. I'm going to be doing my wide receiver hidden rankings in just a little bit. So my turn to play the exact same game that Mike just did. Let's get started here, Mike, and let's play the wide receiver bust tree. Look at this. Dead Christmas trees, the tree from Avatar, you got a giant redwood, you got an apple tree, you got the tiny succulent, you name it. Can you trust these guys? Daniel up there on the top of the branches.
I'm not a tree expert. We need an arborist or something to tell me what trees are good and bad.
An arborist.
Is that it? Isn't that a thing?
I think that is. Well,
Did I nail that?
An arboretum is where you go look at trees.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would be correct, I would imagine. What do you do with Deebo Samuel this week?
I think you try your hardest to not put him in your lineup because it just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
I think you were like a week or two ahead on this of like flipping Juwan Jennings ahead of him, but it was just like, man, the body of work with Deebo, and he's still on the field all the time, and they're manufacturing touches. It's going to happen at some point, right? Well, the fact is, it just hasn't happened for him. Last week, they tried. Right out of the gate, they tried. 7 targets. He had 2 carries. They resulted in 19 yards in that game on 5 touches. 6.1 or fewer fantasy points in 5 straight games. Under 13 in 8 straight and 10 of his last 11 games. He has 1 weekly finish better than 40th since week 2. He has 0 top 10 fantasy weeks this season. It has been a total disaster this year. I know that over the past month, they talked about it with Purdy. Purdy's out 1. Bad weather. 3 out of the 4 games were affected. But this is a tough matchup. Miami's allowed 3 receivers to get to 20. Is Deebo going to be the 4th? The guy can't even get to 12. I don't think so. So I think if you need him in your flex, you want to be hopeful that they keep getting him the ball and he gets going. Fine. He should have had a touchdown last week. He dropped it, maybe. But he's wide receiver 36 for me.
I've got him as wide receiver 49. I am so
49,
out,
wow.
So out on Deebo. You mentioned some of the caveats with the last stretch of games. But over his last 5 weeks, Deebo's high point total is 6.1. That's the most he's scored in the last 5 weeks. Yep. His best finish in that same time frame is wide receiver 55. I might be being generous with wide receiver 49.
Yeah, you're right.
Just not happening right now. We said this last week, so I almost hesitate to say it again. But because there's yet another 49ers injury to monitor at least, I will say it again. The only way that I think Deebo gets going this week is if somehow he gets 12 running back attempts.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I don't think he's ever had that in his career.
I'm just saying. But, I mean, with potentially no Isaac Guerrero, who missed practice on Wednesday with a hamstring injury, we'll see. Patrick Taylor will be the next man up, I think. Izzy Abanikanda claimed off of waivers last week. Keyshawn Vaughn, just another guy, right? So maybe that sparks a bit more rushing work for Deebo. Other than that, though, I am doing everything in my power to avoid having him in my lineup.
Agreed. I'm only higher than you because, I'm going to chase that usage. When you get 7 targets and 2-3 carries, it's hard to fail, for this long. It's really unheard of that he could be doing this poorly. So
I'm just hoping that I'm doing the people a public service here.
Look, I'm with you.
If I'm wrong, I will be so happy because I think there are people that probably need Deebo somehow, some way in a miracle.
Yeah, well, then again, if you're in the Final Four this week, probably don't have Deebo on your team. Probably
maybe a deeper league. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
Tyreek Hill, what are you doing with him this week?
I'm at 19 here. He's been all over the map. 2 catches, 36 yards, and 7 targets last week. But the week prior, he had 10 catches, 115 yards and a score. Season high in fantasy points, over 28. He's just been back and forth. He has a touchdown in 4 of his last 6 games. 19-plus fantasy points, 3 of his last 5, but under 10 in the other 2. Yeah. But again, Niners, really good. All the attention's on the offense, and they're underperforming, but the defense has allowed the second fewest yards and 4th fewest fantasy points to receivers this season. So it is tough, but it is Tyreek Hill at the same time. I think you start him. I think if you have him, again, if you took him early in the first round, you might not be alive right now, but if you have him, I think he should be in your lineup.
I agree. He's still a yes/no guy for me. I still have him as wide receiver 20. But I was looking at some stuff yesterday to try to figure out like where it's all gone wrong. And I get it. A big part of it is that there was no Tua for 4 games. That's 4 games, though, right? We're in week 16.
Yeah, that's not enough of an excuse for the rest of the games, yeah.
When was the last time Tyreek Hill caught a pass that resulted in more than a 30-yard gain? Somewhere between 31 and 99 yards.
Well, you did have that huge game last week, but I'm guessing it's not. That'll say either week 1 or last season.
Week 1.
Yeah.
Week 1, people. If you were to categorize the best vertical receivers in the NFL, it's probably Tyreek, right? I mean, he's certainly on the short list. Didn't it feel like for the past, this is year 3 for Tua and Mike McDaniel together, I believe?
I think so.
Doesn't it feel like one of the hallmarks of them was just like, even if they were kind of sputtering for a drive, 2, 3, 4 drives, next thing you know, it was just like, oh, let's just crank one back to Tyreek, and then the floodgates are open, and they go on like a 3-drive, 17-point run.
Yeah, I'm with you. And that's why I have, like, obviously I should have been higher on Achane this year, but the rushing did plummet there. The thing is that their offense was, like, who expected them to kind of phase out Tyreek and Waddle and just, again, Tua has the lowest average depth to throw in the NFL. It's like 5 yards. Everything is Achane short range. No one saw that coming. I mean, that's the only thing that works for them consistently is that play. And that's why Achane's been good. I mean, that has carried his fantasy value this entire season is that extreme level of usage in the screen and short range game. And I don't understand it really. I don't know why they have gone this direction and why.
I have just one thought.
It's like targets are down too for them. It's not like they're trying really. I mean, I'm sure they're theoretically trying, but it's not happening. Like they just haven't figured out how to get them guys the ball. And when it was so successful the last couple of years.
My best guess, and this is just a guess, and if there's somebody out there who's smarter than me, well, there are a lot of people that are out there that are smarter than me, but if there is somebody out there that has studied this closely and has a different theory, a better theory, I'd like to hear it. This feels like the baseball pitcher who's going through the lineup the 3rd time and the hitters have caught on to him, right? Is that like the stuff that Miami was doing for the past couple of years, the NFL just like wasn't totally ready for it, right? They didn't have a counter punch. Now they do. Yeah. And maybe some of it's also like a little bit of regression. Maybe Tyreek Hill is 1 mile per hour slower. Still looks fast as crap to me when he has the football in his hands, right?
Yeah, he does. He does. Maybe it's something to that extent. I mean, we saw that happen to Buffalo. We've seen it happen to the Chiefs where they had to just drastically adjust their offense because everyone was playing too high. And maybe there's some element of that. But you're right. Yeah, I'd be curious to.
I don't think the wrist is there. I don't know if I can't figure out how much of a factor the wrist is. I don't think much. I mean, he's playing every snap. He's playing every game. It's a wrist, not his knee. So I'm having a hard time.
And he just had a huge game 2 weeks ago. So
totally.
It's been better lately, but it's not. 2023, Tyreek, not even close.
I just wanted some of the easy button games, right? Like the 5 for 154 and a touchdown from Tyreek. DeVonta Smith, Mike, had a huge week last week, monster week last week. Do we expect it to now be another week of throwing the football a lot?
Yeah, you know what? He's been fine this year, which is like last week I was a little more negative. I feel a little better because they were like, I was just making fun of myself. I'll take a W on this one. Like, what did we talk about last week? It was like the Eagles know in their back pocket they have this passing game. And they're like, you know what? People are giving us a hard time. We're going to unleash it. Yeah. We're going to back off the running a little bit. We're going to show you what we got in A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, and easy to crush the Steelers defense. I mean, no problem whatsoever. And that makes me feel really good about them because they haven't needed it this year. It hasn't really been a problem as much as it's been unnecessary for them. But yeah, I don't know how you bench DeVonta Smith after last week. 12 targets, that's a season high. 11 catches is a career high. 109 yards is most in over a year. Since it was mid-range last season, and then 28 fantasy points most since week 16 of 2022. Yeah. So huge game last week. 13 plus fantasy points now in 8 of 11 games. So generally you're getting a decent sort of floor, worst case, like flex numbers. I know he's been under 7 2 of his last 4. He's had a couple duds, but for the most part, he has been good. If there's a reservation here, it's that one of those duds was against this Washington defense, who's been much better the past 2 months, and most of that was without Marshawn Lattimore, who was an every-down player last week. Second fewest fantasy points to receivers in their last 8. DeVonta in that game was a Thursday night game at 29 yards and 6 targets in that game. So they did a nice job on him, but that was a big Barkley game. It wasn't a high-scoring game. Barkley had that long touchdown. So, again, after last week and what he's done this year, this offense, I think you start him. But, He'll come down a little bit from where he was last.
Yeah, he will. I think reality is that like the people that have the ability to influence Devontae's day are the Eagles themselves, right? In this regard,
yeah.
is that in the past 6 games, he's had a target share over 23.1% in 5 of those 6 games. That's good, right? Except for the fact that some weeks he's throwing the football, Jalen Hurts, 18 times.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if he gets 4 targets, or 5 targets, that's nearly a third of the targets for a game. So the Eagles kind of have to decide how they're going to play offense in this game. But if it's anything like last week and you have him on the bench, you're going to be royally screwed. So he is wide receiver 31 for you, wide receiver 28 for me. Darnell Mooney gets the Michael Penix bump or dump. Where are you at on Darnell this week?
Yeah, by the way, I totally forgot about the tree metaphors here.
Oh, sorry.
But I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know, just dead tree, happy tree, good tree.
Whatever.
Anyway, yeah, so look, we talked about this yesterday. I have a little bit more pause with Penix than you do just because of the history of I expect him to lean toward being a pocket quarterback. I know you said he's a good athlete. Maybe he runs more in the pros than he did in college, but I don't expect it to be spectacular. Like, I don't know what his rushing ceiling is. Yeah.
I just mean like actually capable of evading a sack.
Yeah, okay.
Which
Well,
Kirk Cousins
totally
can no longer do.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's good in the sense that it adds targets to the offense, but we've seen that with Kirk Cousins. We've seen that with other rookie quarterbacks. There might be just efficiency problems here. He might struggle for a while. So, look, Mooney's targets are down substantially as of late, 7.7 per game during his first 10 games. He's maxed out at 7 in his last 4 games, so averaging 4.5 per games. He had one big game 2 weeks ago. Otherwise, it's been all fantasy duds. The Giants are an interesting matchup because they've quietly been okay against receivers because they haven't had to throw a lot. But they've been down to our top 3 corners each of the last 2 weeks and could be down them again, so that would help a little bit. So I'm low on Mooney. I'm at 50. I think this is a dead tree, at least for 1 week. A dead bush or a Christmas tree that you're shopping for that's missing a lot of branches.
Okay. I have a bit more flowery outlook for Darnell Mooney.
Well done.
My ranking for Darnell Mooney is basically your ranking of Deebo Samuel, and your ranking of Deebo Samuel is basically my ranking of Darnell. So Deebo versus Darnell.
Okay.
Want to do it?
Yeah, I believe Darnell Mooney I believe Deebo Samuel will outscore Darnell Mooney here in week number 16.
And I believe that Darnell Mooney will outscore Deebo Samuel in week 16. Put it on the board.
Put it on the board.
Like it. We have 2 board bets going this week. Do Mike Clay and I. For those that missed it yesterday, the Bills by 21 or more points on Sunday.
So I went to get a haircut yesterday, and I was talking to my barber, and we were talking ball the whole time. Yeah. And he does a little betting on the side, and I told him that. I was like, he gave me 21 points for that game. He's like, what? No way. He's like, you got a good one there. You got a So barber approved bet on my end.
We'll find out. Yeah. We'll find out. If I win that bet, maybe I get a free haircut from the barber next time soon. All right, one more here, Mike. Is Jalen McMillan a viable flex this week?
Oh, yeah. I think he's on the flex radar.
Me too, yeah.
I have him ahead of Mooney, actually. He's been awesome lately. Remember, this is a 3rd-round pick.
Yep.
You would expect this guy to develop, and you don't take a guy in the 3rd round to be a career backup, right? He's a guy you expect to be a starter. 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. His first 8 games didn't do much. He won that 3 job, which I think is notable here. He was beaten out. It's not like he was struggling like some other guys have, beaten out like Trey, Palmer, whoever it may be. He took that 3 job, but failed to clear 35 yards or 10.2 fantasy points in those games. But he has 59-plus yards and 18-plus fantasy points in 2 straight. He's a full-timer now, opposite Mike Evans. He's kind of, I don't want to say he took the Godwin role, but he's become that 2 and ahead of Cade Otton on the totem pole.
Definitely ahead of Cade
as well.
Otton, yeah.
What's that?
Definitely ahead of Cade.
No doubt. And also good matchup. Cowboys top 10 in yards, catches, and fantasy points allowed to receivers. Trevon Diggs is out for the season, so there should be opportunities here for sure.
Yeah, those 13 targets over the past 2 games are good. I just feel like he's better suited as a 2 than a 3. I mean, than a 1, right? Like, remember he was the 1 for a minute there amongst the wide receivers. And it just feels like a guy, because there's no Mike Evans and no Chris Cousins.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just mean, like, if you spend a day 2 pick on a receiver, you expect him to be a starter. That's your hope.
I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is that, like, it was too much responsibility to be the wide receiver 1. It was too little to be the wide receiver 3. He's found his right spot.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So I agree with you. But yeah, generally your 1st-round pick. That's your number 1.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Long term. But yeah, I agree. But again, we found plenty of fantasy gems, long-term NFL, fantasy relevant receivers in rounds 2 and 3, and maybe McMillan's the next guy. So.
Okay, love it. Let's do it. Let's go to the wide receiver Week 16 hidden rankings. And Mike, you have all the power. You are asking the questions. I am merely doing the rankings.
All right, well, here we go. We're going to start right off with one of your favorite players that you drafted in the offseason with Malik Neighbors going into Atlanta this week. So we already got Malik Neighbors 1 through 10. Where are you?
I'm going to go with a little bit of 4 action.
4?
Leaving some room in case there is something non-football related that comes up during this conversation. But Malik Neighbors with his 14 targets last week. Drew Lock, by the way, taking back over as the starter.
It's every week.
This
it's a new
upcoming
guy.
weekend.
You might be starting next
for the
week.
Giants. That's correct.
Yeah,
hasn't been ruled out. Yeah.
You have him ranked 6th this week. By the way, Atlanta, I think he'll draw the A.J. Terrell shadow in this game, but receivers that have been shadowed by Terrell, I believe there is one exception in there, have crushed it this year. Atlanta cannot stop receivers, so he is in a great spot. Could be a week winner for sure. All right, so Neighbors at 4. Next up, Devontae Adams faces off at home against the Rams.
Yeah, good matchup here. I'll go 3 for Devontae.
3 ahead of
1 spot ahead of Neighbors in my rankings.
You do. You have him at 4. This says you have Adams 4, Neighbors 6. So
okay,
close.
Yep.
But
so
all right,
2 spots ahead.
All right, next
Devontae
up.
played well. Maybe this is maybe it's too little, too late. I mean, it is too little, too late. And I'm sure Jets fans are not going to be satisfied by this. I do wonder if there is a part of Aaron and Devontae that over the last 3 weeks of this season is saying, people have already written our personal obituaries, maybe not as football players, but as Jets. Let's make sure that if all of a sudden we're available to 31 other teams, they're reminded down the stretch that we still have some football left in us.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if they end up on the same team going into next year, because it's I don't care how old they are or what you think of them, that connection is unstoppable,
it's real,
and
no
it's
doubt,
back now. So, all right, cool. All right, next up, I know that you're a fan of this because you mentioned this in social. Costco hot dogs.
Ooh,
you're putting the Costco hot dogs on this list.
I tell you what, I'm trying to be strategic here. Well, let's have a conversation about this.
Okay.
I'm going number 2. You know why?
Wow.
So I'm not even a hot dog enthusiast in general.
Neither.
They're fine. But in America, where I go and buy something at the gas station that when I first got my driver's license 20 years ago, I bought for 94 cents. Mm-hmm. Now I'm buying for $4.15. Hey, here's a pack of gum. That'd be $3.75. I'm for a pack of gum?
I know, yeah.
The flavor lasts for a minute and a half. There's only 10 sticks in there. Really?
Yeah, it's $8 for a bottle of water. Yeah,
the Costco hot dog is the best value in America.
Okay, so this is
you get a hot dog and a soda for $1.50.
All right, I'll give you this. So this is a value. It's almost like in DFS where you're this is the pun of I can start, I don't know, Patrick Taylor this week if Grendo's out for $3,000.
Exactly,
Yeah,
correct. So Costco hot dogs. Now, I got to be honest with you. There are other options on the Costco menu that might be even better values. I think their pizza isn't just a value. I think it's fantastic pizza. I'm completely convinced they have some of the best pizza in the country at Costco.
That's a high claim, especially in New Haven County.
We live in Connecticut, which does have some great pizza. The smoothies, also really good. I also like buying, I don't even like soda. I mean, I don't dislike it, but I'm not the kind of guy that drinks it regularly. I don't dislike it, but I'm not let me grab some soda 5 nights a week. I will get a soda because I'm paying 13 cents for this thing.
This is wild. So, man, you must, you're a cheap date. Cheap and just take you to Costco for a pizza and a soda.
I am a very suburban dad.
It's you get a pizza, soda, and a hot dog, and it's $4.
Well, but here's the deal. Everybody knows this, and I'm not the first person to reveal this.
And 36 rolls of paper towels.
Correct.
What a deal.
Exactly. Right? So, I overspent on groceries by $412, but I underspent on food by about $13, so it all comes out in the wash.
Okay. Right? All right. Fair enough. All right. Next up, we just talked about this guy, Tyreek Hill against 49ers this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go with let's go 6th here. Leave a little bit of room in the mix.
This is going to get interesting.
Yep, the upside is certainly there, yeah.
All right, we talked about him, so we'll move on to your guy. We just talked about him a little bit, pending free agent. T. Higgins facing off with the division rival Cleveland Browns this week.
I'm going to go number 5 here for T. Higgins, right behind Malik Neighbors and right ahead of Tyreek Hill. T, as we know, has been awesome for much of this season. A dud this past week, but are you really concerned about him dudding again?
Okay. All right. I like it. Next up, we have Drake London. He's going up against the New York Giants, who, again, we talked about this with Mooney, should be very shorthanded, or even if they're not, he might draw Deontay Banks.
I'm going 7th here for Drake London. And probably that's probably a little bit inverse from how my rankings are. I think I probably have him ahead. I know I have him ahead of Tyreek Hill, and I believe maybe even a spot or two ahead of T. Higgins. Here's what I'm hoping for, selfishly, is that we also get a glimpse into the future. Because if Penix is as good as the Falcons believe he is, I know that Drake London saw a bump this year, but the bump could continue again next year, right? Like, when you watch the Falcons, it hasn't been fun of late to watch them play offense. But when London gets the football, you're like, damn, that guy is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, he's such a talented player that I'm going 7, and I'm trying to bring to life more of a push forward next year.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going for.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to, and I like that sometimes, that variability of quarterback or the range of outcomes, because that was like my story all offseason. I think like the first 10 drafts we did when we were doing that draft series, I took Cortland Sutton in every single one, and it was like in the 10th round. And my thought process there was, if Bo Nix stinks, he still is number 1 target, and he's going to get a big target share, and it might not be great, but he's probably going to be a flex. But if Bo Nix is good, Sutton's like, he gets that bump, and he's like wide receiver 15. So same kind of thing with London. You're right. Like we with Cousins there, we moved him up. But if like the wide range of outcomes, if Penix is a superstar, London could have be wide receiver 2 next year or something. So
all right,
I'm with you. All right, next up, we got a Heisman Trophy winner on here. So this is your maybe the final wild card here, and it's the most recent Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter.
I realize I still have one available, don't I?
You sure do.
I'll go 1. Number 1 player on my big board here is Travis Hunter. This guy's so special, man. And we can have a conversation about Dynasty Leagues at some point. Such a fun player to watch. He's the most effortless playmaker that I have seen in a long time. As a receiver, I personally see some shades of Tyreek Hill in the sense that not the current version of Tyreek Hill, but the Tyreek Hill that would run for, would receive for 30-plus yards like every other play. Just glides, great ball skills, obviously competitive, and has great stamina. He plays 110 snaps a game. It's just ridiculous. Wild. I don't know whether he'll play wide receiver or cornerback at the next level. Yeah. If I had to guess right now, I think he's going to go into the NFL with the intention to play both ways. And then I think that NFL teams are going to have a conversation with the player upon, probably before drafting him. It's probably a conversation you have. And I think I can make the case that it's more viable to play full-time corner and part-time wide receiver. But I also can make the case that if I were in Travis Hunter's shoes and I recognize that Justin Jefferson, the top-paid wide receiver, makes $10 million per year more than the top-paid corner, then I might say, if you're going to play me full-time at one and occasionally at the other, play me at wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree. And I wonder, there's some corners that will rotate. Maybe he's like the nickel, which doesn't mean you're the slot necessarily. You can, you have a Byron Murphy, they kick inside, you play outside. So maybe he's like, I don't know, 2/3 corner, 1/3 receiver or something. Like, we've never really seen that. That's just not a thing that happens, but who knows? Maybe that's the future, or certainly the way he's utilized. So it's going to be interesting, and that will matter in Dynasty, because if he's going to be listed as a corner and play some receiver, it's going to be useless in fantasy for the most part. So that'll be an off-season discussion for sure. All right, we got 3 more here. And you soaked up the first 8?
So I'm kind of
the first 7, I mean. Yeah. All right, I think I did a better job than you at this. Let's see. Our next up is Jackson Smith and Jigba against Minnesota this week. You got 8, 9, and 10 left. 8.
That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. I think it's, he might be a few spots higher than some of the guys ranked ahead of him, but no, Jackson Smith and Jigba, I'm good with it.
All right, fine, fair enough. 8, he's been awesome this year. So young too. So far to go.
You better not.
What it reminds me of is Juju Smith-Schuster, when he came in and just had his second year was just like this, where he was like wide receiver 9 and had that
hopefully the rest amount of the years are better beyond that.
100%. But the start of his career is very similar.
Yeah.
And they have the hyphen, which is notable. Next up is George Pickens going up against Baltimore. Obviously,
good matchup if he plays. I'll go 9 here. I know I've left myself. I had you were much more all over the board than I was.
You're in trouble with this one.
Okay.
Number 10. Is playing Washington this week, A.J. Brown. The disrespect. I want this clipped and put on social with no context.
You know what I want after that? I want to put it in my own locker room. I've talked about this league with you enough, and I've almost convinced myself that like it's become bad voodoo to talk about it. But the longest league I've ever played in, this is year 14, and I'm championship-less. I'm in the semis this year, and I think my team coming into the season was outstanding. It's a keeper league. CMC, Breece Hall, Alvin Kamara. So we've lost probably all 3 of those for this week, right? I'm sorry, 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3
this week. Yep. A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill. Wide receiver 3 is, this is non-PPR, so who am I forgetting? Oh, Cortland Sutton.
Sutton, pretty good. Wide receiver 15, I believe, this year in regular PPR, so probably.
Juwan Jennings, who would not be my flex, but with those 3 running backs down to 2, he's probably my flex there. 6-point passing touchdown, Jared Goff.
Ooh, nice.
Who's been solid of late. It's a keeper league, it's a contract league, so I've got Drake May for $1. That'll probably be the bridge to the future. Anyways, it would mean a lot to win that league, like more than I should probably admit publicly. But I would be very, very pleased. And A.J. Brown obviously is one of the straws that stirs the drink there. So I apologize for the disrespect, but if it motivates you for Sunday, A.J., thank you.
I think you did this on purpose.
I did it. If everybody could just root for that team, by the way, I would be immensely indebted to you.
I definitely want this posted without context.
Please do. Yeah. Do it.
Like you put A.J. Brown 10th? Yeah, it'd be great.
Damn.
All right, that was fun. I love those lists.
It's always fun. Let's skip through a couple of running back regression candidates, Mike, here, positively or negatively. Let's begin with Ramondre Stevenson. Where are we at here on Ramondre?
Yeah, so I'm at 24 this week. I don't believe I listed him as a lineup lock because I don't think he is that right now, despite a lot of volume as of late. He does have at least 77 yards in 4 of his last 5 games, but hasn't reached 13 fantasy points in any of those games. Just 9.4 per game. He hasn't scored a touchdown since week 9. That's one of the problems.
Touchdown dependent.
Yeah, he is, because he's not getting the ball in the passing game like we expected. 21 or fewer receiving yards in 12 of 13 games, 7 under 10 yards. That's obviously a killer in PPR formats. On the plus side, does have 21 plus touches in 3 of his last 5. And a good matchup here against Buffalo. 4th in yards, 2nd in fantasy points allowed to running backs this season. So that gives you some hope that he can get going this week, but it's been a rough road as of late.
How about Tajay Spears, who this is very much contingent upon Tony Pollard playing or not playing?
Yeah.
If he plays, you're not playing Tajay Spears. If he doesn't, you got to feel pretty good about his outlook.
Yeah, just very disappointed with how little Spears has been used, especially when they expanded his role last week, and he looked good. He had a huge game, 92 yards and 2 touchdowns, 27.2 fantasy points. But it's been, they signed Tony Pollard, and we're like, man, we got a full-timer here. We got a feature back. And we didn't really expect that because Spears was basically playing that Justice Hill role that he's playing in Baltimore. He was playing in Tennessee. He was out snapping as a rookie. Derrick Henry.
Yeah, he was good.
And his role has reduced this year. I know he missed some time with an injury, but this was the case right out of the gate. But yeah, with Spears, look, if Pollard plays, you cannot buy into what happened last week. Prior to this game, he had 275 yards and 51 fantasy points and 68 touches in 9 games this season. So not even close. And by the way, Pollard still last week scored a touchdown, had 17 carries in that game. So it's not like he just disappeared. This is a pretty good matchup. It's a better matchup for Pollard because they've struggled on the ground as opposed to the passing game where Spears does his work. So I say, to answer the question, another big week for Spears, I'd say no. But if Pollard is out, flex, I'd go that high, not any further.
This is an interesting one. Are you starting Brian Robinson this week?
I'm at 23, so we just talked about Stevenson. It's a similar outlook. I feel, I don't know, like it's kind of, to steal a Liz Loza theme, like facts versus feelings, right? Like the facts haven't been great for him, but I feel better about him than Ramondre because I think he's really good, underrated player. Yeah. Offense is better. He did have 24 touches last week, which is good. But the lack of passing game work, very similar to Stevenson, is concerning. He hasn't cleared 3 targets in a game since he had 4 a season high in week 1. Yep. So that hasn't happened for him.
Yeah, last week was actually his first game since week 5. I acknowledge there were some games missed to injury during that stretch with multiple catches. So 1 or 0 in every week that he played between week 6 and week 14.
Yeah, so to your point with Stevenson, same thing. Yeah. See, Robinson has a touchdown in 8 of 11 games. He's still only averaging 13.3 fantasy points per game with a touchdown in 8 of 11 games this season. One of his better games, though, was against the Eagles, actually. They've been very good against running backs this year. None have reached 21 points against them, but he did have 17 touches, 72 yards, and a touchdown. It was the 3rd best game by a running back against the Eagles this season. So there's your silver lining if you want to put Robinson in your flex your RB2 slot this week.
Okay, there you have it there for Brian Robinson. Last one here before we get to our Thursday Night Football game preview, and I do want to give that some time because we have some interesting decisions tonight.
Yeah, we do.
Rachaad White for the Bucks, who obviously Bucky Irving played last week and did look good. He got going, especially in the second half with that long run, but Rachaad White just kind of clung to value, Mike.
Yeah, he has, and that's what happens when you have at least 11 touches in 12 of 13 games, not to mention 9 touchdowns in his last 8 games. Rachaad White actually
6 receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, 7 now, right? Yeah, he leads all running backs in receiving touchdowns this year with 7. So, and by the way,
whatever.
Yeah. Again, one of the low key, just solid players. We keep trying to kind of push him out the door, and Bucky's so exciting. But remember, Bucky is one of the smallest running backs in the NFL in terms of like guys that actually play substantial snaps. So. And that's going to be an interesting offseason topic. Like, what's Irving's ceiling? He's in a good situation now, but he's an undersized back. But last week, the snaps were 52% White, 43% Irving. As Irving gets closer to full health, that could flip-flop for sure because he was trending that way before that injury.
Yeah.
But the fact is they're both going to play. Irving is good, explosive. He's playing enough. They're both getting enough volume. So I have White at RB26. I have Irving higher at RB19 because he's just been better on a per-game basis this season and trending up. So I'll go with him. Both in a good matchup, by the way. Dallas has allowed the 4th most touchdowns, about little more than 1 per game to running backs this season.
Sunday Night Football, Bucks and Cowboys. All right, so I wanted to give this game some time here, Mike. So let's get into our Thursday Night Football preview. This is Chargers and Broncos. We have, of course, a couple of quarterbacks that we discussed earlier. So we have a few topics here, but let's talk about them to begin. I know this is off the note here, Mike, but like general confidence index in Bo and Justin Herbert going into tonight is what?
Yeah, it's not low. And I'm just going to give you my score projection now because it's going to be kind of the baseline for this analysis, which is Broncos win this game 19-17. Okay. That's my projection. I don't know what the ESPN bet line is, but I'm sure it's not far off. I'm usually within a couple points of those lines. So
I'll tell you right now.
Two good defenses. I think it's going to be running the ball. It's going to be low scoring. So I don't have confidence in either of these quarterbacks putting up big numbers and being fantasy starters. I would not want to start Bo Nix despite a successful season. And I know the second half's been better for Justin Herbert, but not a guy, again, that I think has a high fantasy ceiling. So if you start either guy, I think you're hoping you get 40 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown to bail him out, but I think you have 10, 12 better options.
The Chargers are 3-point favorites.
So I'm going the other way on that.
Over under 41.5. That's a low number. Not a super low number, but pretty darn low, right?
What did I say? 19-17, so 36.
Yeah. So you're a couple points. You're
a little under and leaning Broncos,
Yeah, so I'm with you in terms of my quarterback's confidence. I, in a perfect world, would like to start other options. That being said, if I had to choose one between those two, I'm probably going with Bo because he's been a more consistent performer this season. Let's get into some interesting ones here, Mike. And you and I were talking about this prior to the show. Jaleel McLaughlin's been ruled out for the Broncos in this game. It's a foot injury. I don't know a whole lot more about it. During these short weeks, they don't really practice, so it's hard for us to gather much info.
Another again, like Irving, another small back that got an expanded workload and immediately got hurt.
Yep.
It's
there's
red
probably
flag.
a reason why. Yes. So Javonte Williams ostensibly should be in a pretty busy role tonight. But will he be, and what's the outlook if he is?
Yeah, so I think he will. I think he's a pretty good candidate for 15 touches, and maybe they took a longer look at Audric Estime, but they haven't really done that. There was that one game where he had 14 touches in Week 10. He played 45% of the snaps. He had 5.3 fantasy points. Yeah. He's actually maxed out at 5.5, and he's played in quite a few games this year. He's running the ball fine, but he's a non-factor in the passing game. He has 0 touchdowns. I just think even if he gets 10 touches, that's probably where he's maxing out. So my expectation is that carries will be close. I think Javonte gets an edge because they just keep going back to him. It's always Javonte. It's Javonte. They love Javonte. And then, of course, passing down work definitely goes to Javonte. Right. So even if Estime has 12 carries to 8 for Javonte's probably getting all 5, 6, 7 targets out of the backfield. But the reality is you're not going to start Estime. And I wouldn't want to start Javonte. Even without McLaughlin, I have him at RB28. He has 3 finishes better than 25th this year.
Yeah.
And they've been trying to make him the lead back. So I would avoid this if possible, especially in a good matchup, by the way. Chargers have tied with Philly for the fewest touchdowns allowed to running backs this season. But if you have to pick one, it's Javonte as a flex.
Quentin Johnston on the other side of this game is kind of an interesting one. What is your outlook for him tonight? Are you feeling like he has done enough over the past 2 weeks with 17 targets to become a start, or
So I do believe, and this will probably surprise some people, I do believe Pat Surtain will shadow Quentin Johnston in this game.
I'm not surprised by that.
Johnston has had the shadow treatment a couple times this year. And, of course, the first shot is often like, what about Ladd McConkey? He's in the slot. Surtain's not going to the slot, so he doesn't have to worry about that at all. Denver has allowed 7 touchdowns to receivers this season. That is fewest in the NFL. And that's despite some struggles as of late, too, because away from Surtain, they haven't always been that good. So
no Riley Moss tonight, by the way.
Yeah, no Riley Moss. He's out on the other side. Who's Drings? Who's the
Chris Abrams-Drain from Missouri, the fifth-round rookie from Missouri.
Yeah, they like him. They expanded his role last week, so he'll probably play a little bit more with Damari Mathis. But 41% of the snaps Johnson played when they played the first time, and Surtain was on him quite a bit. 3 catches, 22 yards. That was that game where like Simi Fehoko was kind of like stealing his job a little bit, and then he got hurt, and Johnson has been pretty decent since then. But what a weird year he's had. Johnson was like, he's behind DJ Chark. It's over, and then he's like been
8 receiving
decent.
touchdowns.
Yeah, like he's had some bad games, but some good games as well. 8 touchdowns in 12 games, right? So he's been fine. But his best fantasy point total in a game that he hasn't scored a touchdown is 6.8.
6.8.
Yeah. So wow. He's it's funny. We were just talking about some running backs in the same department. It's like if you start Johnson, you're hoping for a touchdown because he might not get 50 yards. You need that touchdown or it's going to be a dud, and that's been the case all year for him.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And this, man. Game's in L.A., right?
The game is in L.A., yes.
Yeah, because they're favorites there. At least there's no weather concerns. I'll take that. I don't know. Yeah. I'm trying to find silver linings here. It's supposed to be cold all over the NFL map for the most part this weekend. Anything else on this game that you're saying to yourself, like, here's a real decision that I am facing? Like, Ladd McConkey we feel pretty good about. Cortland Sutton we feel pretty good about. I think we prefer not to start a Chargers running back, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not high enough on Stone Smart to plug him in to my tight end slide with everything on the line
Hurst
this week.
Could be back for LA
that's a good point
as well. Yep.
Oh, yeah, the running backs for the Chargers.
I mean, Gus Edwards, are you really going to play him given the fact that his highest point total this season is 9.6?
No, well, I mean, Vidal is the one now. He played 67% of the snaps last week, and that resulted in, let's see here, 3 carries and 3 targets in that game. Very, very low volume for sure. Gus Edwards has been under 10 fantasy points in every single game this season. Yeah. So situation to avoid. I would avoid all the running backs in this game if possible. And the only receivers you're starting are Sutton and McConkey. They're the only lineup blocks I have listed for this game. But otherwise I'm out. I think the toughest decision you might have is Quentin Johnston, if you plug him into your flex or not, in your wide receiver slot since it's Thursday. And I would lean away with Surtain there. I would not do it.
All right. So, Mike, you mentioned those 2 guys, Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston as lineup blocks tonight.
No, McConkey and Sutton.
I'm sorry. Yep. Ladd McConkey and Cortland Sutton as lineup blocks tonight. Mm-hmm. Got a parlay for me?
I do have a parlay for you. Let me pull up this.
Hit me with the goods.
This fancy little note here because it's jotted on here.
This is courtesy of ESPN Bet, right?
The ESPN Bet fantasy-focused parlay is Ladd McConkey and Cortland Sutton, each to record 70-plus receiving yards and 6+ receptions. It was plus 475. It's now plus 575. So, if we like them as lineup blocks, you probably like them to get to 6 for 70.
It was plus 475, and it's now boosted to plus 575. Can I quote Greeny here? Boost it, baby! Like that commercial?
Yeah.
You know those are
of course, yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of great commercials with the whole crew. Aaron Dolan. Awesome team.
Those make me laugh every time.
Yeah.
All right, it's great stuff there. And you're picking you said the Broncos 19-17, right?
Broncos pull up off the upset. I'm buying into Sean Payton.
An ESPN bet upset. I'm going to go with the Broncos. You know what? I'm going to go with the Chargers. It's a responsibility to split us so that, like, if we both guess the wrong team, that would be very bad.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take the Chargers in this game. We will be watching at least part of this game together as a handful of us are going to go grab some food tonight.
Christmas party tonight.
Christmas
be celebrating a little bit.
Yep.
We're just days away, my friend. I mean, what do we got? Wednesday, 6 days away till Christmas.
Yep.
Yeah.
My kids have already started baking cookies and picking out carrots for the reindeer that are headed our way here in good old Connecticut. Fun stuff, my friend.
Yeah, always good.
Good luck, everybody. Whether it is the second week of your 2-week first round of the playoffs, or if it is the beginning of your semifinals tonight, whatever round it is, good luck in the playoffs. For Mike, I am Field. Thanks again for watching Fantasy Focus Football, as always, presented by Wingstop. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. We have a full Week 16 preview. Daniel, Stefania, Mike, and I will be here. Can't wait for it. We'll see you then. Oh, we really will. I promise.